Hello, welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I am Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined today by Will Denner, and we have a special episode today because we are revealing the all-region boys and girls basketball teams. We did a similar thing for football. It was a lot of fun. It kind of got the discussion going about those teams that we selected and how we went about selecting those, but mostly it gave us a chance to honor those athletes that had outstanding seasons. And we are going to do the same here in boys and girls basketball. But like always, we're coming to you from the First Pacific Financial Studio. Thanks to them for supporting the show, for supporting high school athletics, and by extension, supporting the community at large. But these teams, they were in some ways easy to pick because we had some just outstanding performances on the boys and girls basketball courts this year. But it's always tough as well because, we combine what we saw ourselves versus kind of the feedback we got from coaches and had to put a team together. So there'll always be someone that's left off. But in this case, I think we have a real solid group of boys and girls that just on the hardwood really shined this year.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, let's start with the girls, and we'll start by revealing the second team that we pick. We have 6 girls on the first team, including our player of the year, and 6 girls on the second team. And the first player we'll highlight on the second team is a fantastic freshman out at Woodland, and that would be Kennedy Bockert. Kennedy Bockert, she set a program record for points in a single season as a freshman with 438 points, and also a program record with 301 rebounds. So already making history out there at Woodland is Kennedy Bockert.
Yeah, I think she's the type of player who raises the profile of really an entire program. To have a player like that to set those records as a freshman for an entire program. You see sometimes in high school basketball, and I would say particularly high school girls basketball, where a team just has this really tall player who you can just kind of lob the ball into, and this is kind of the case with Woodland, except I would also say that Kennedy Bockert is already a really polished post player as well. I feel like in the one game I saw of them this year, it was the kind of matchup that just posed challenges for their opponent, and for years to come, she'll be a force in the 2A Greater St. Helens League.
All right. Well, speaking of the 2A Greater St. Helens League, our next player hails from that, and that is Columbia River's Emma Iniguez, a senior who led the Rapids to back-to-back league titles. She helped Columbia River reach the 2A state quarterfinals and was the 2A Greater St. Helens League co-MVP. Just a real versatile player and someone who, on a team that didn't have a lot of size, could play in the front court, but also handle the ball behind the arc.
Yeah, you said it. She was the co-2A GSHL Player of the Year, a very versatile player on both sides of the ball. I think, a natural position would probably be more of like a wing, but often she had to, guard the tallest player on the opposing team. She can get her shot from just about anywhere on the floor. And I think perhaps, you go beyond the stats with her. She was really one of the main drivers of changing this culture for Columbia River. I remember a story from former coach Jesse Norris ahead of the 2022-23 season in that summer. And, River didn't have a lot of players coming out to summer workouts, and they were kind of frustrated by that. And it just kind of seemed like a similar story to years past. And Norris kind of challenged Emma Iniguez to change that culture and kind of bring some players along with her. And she really did that. Back-to-back state appearances for this team, and a team that hadn't been to state a lot in recent years, but now they go back-to-back and really are well set up for the future.
Well, our next player, also from Columbia River, also a 2A Greater St. Helens League co-MVP, that would be Gracie Glavin. 14.8 points per game. Really was the one that when you needed someone to pick up the scoring load, especially in the league season, I think she had some standout games in those clashes with Ridgefield that ended up determining the league title. Gracie Glavin is also a member of the second team All-Region.
Yeah, just a sophomore, and I think she turned a lot of heads by earning co Player of the Year honors in that league. There's a lot of good players in that league, and she ended up scoring, I think, in the ballpark of 16 points per game, which ranked about 5th in Southwest Washington, which is pretty impressive. Great 3-point shooter, but she can score from all over the floor. And you mentioned those Ridgefield games, the latter one in particular, when they played up in Ridgefield. She really lit it up from 3-point range, and that was the game that really decided the league title and helped River kind of get over the hump into the postseason. And for Gracie to be doing this as just a sophomore was really impressive.
All right, our next all-region member is Kimora Ross of Evergreen, and she guided the Plainsmen to a share of the 3A Greater St. Helens League title, kind of a team that came on sort of late in the season. And then once they got hot, they ended up with their deepest postseason run since 2011, making it to in this case, the round of 20 is in the 3A state tournament. But Kimora Ross of Evergreen, really kind of someone who sets the tone for the Plainsmen.
Yeah, and Kimora Ross is just a sophomore as well. She was also an all-region pick for us last year. The team's leading scorer and kind of part of a 1-2 punch along with Adrian Wright, and she's a talented shooter. I would say one of, again, another just scorer who can find any place on the court, and really has just been part of a major overhaul for this program to not only win the league title for the first time last year since 1980, but then share the league title this year and get even further in the postseason.
All right, our next member of the all-region team, also a repeat honoree, but this time a 3-time honoree, and that would be the sharpshooting guard out at Union, Ava Smith. And Ava Smith, 3-time all-region pick. This year she passed 1,000 career points. She had that game early in the season where she set a single season Union record for 3-pointers in a single game, and was always kind of the 1-2 punch with the in the backcourt with Brooklyn Haywood there. Right. But Ava Smith, a 3-time all-region honoree.
Yeah, one of the top shooters in the area, and for her to get 1,000 career points is quite an accomplishment. I think her and just one other player who we won't reveal yet, but have been 3-time all-region selections of this group. And Ava, she started her career at Camas. She transferred to Union as a junior and senior, and really kind of changed the role a little bit, but still brought the shooting with her and continued to light it up for the Titans. And also just a really good leader, I think, for Union. Coach Gary Mills said that was a big part of how this team was able to gel together was the leadership of Ava Smith. So credit to her.
All right, the final member of the second team for our all-region girls basketball team, and that is a double-double machine at Hudson's Bay, Alana Stevens. She guided the Eagles to the postseason, one of 2 Clark County players to average better than 20 points a game. Alana Stevens, really the one who made that team go.
Yeah, another 2-time all-region selection, and somebody who had to play really big minutes for the Eagles too. I mean, that team sometimes had as small as a 6-player rotation, so really kind of a just an incredible display of athleticism to not only be a rebounder and a scorer, and on a team that really likes to push the pace and kind of thrives on that. She's been a major force in that program now for 3 years. Really left a good legacy for that Hudson's Bay program, and now she's going to be headed to Olive Harvey College, a JUCO in Chicago.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for the second team all-region girls basketball. So we move to the first team and some fabulous players among the 6 here. And we'll start with the 3A Greater St. Helens League MVP, none other than Nita Peterson of Mountain View. 13 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3 steals, kind of all over the court, and really was the power behind a resurgent Thunder program that got a share of the 3A Greater St. Helens League title and made it to the bi-district playoffs after having a rough season last year. They completely turned the tables this year. Yeah,
it had been a couple kind of tough years for them. Anita Peterson was always kind of one of the main figures in that program, and somebody that could not only shoot but was just kind of a versatile player all over the court for them. And this year it translated to team success, which I think is always kind of a cool thing to see when you're a senior who's put in the work for several years. And Nina Peterson was rewarded with, that team excellence this year. And, to get a share of the league title was a great accomplishment and make the postseason. And now she'll continue her basketball career at Columbian University along with good friend Claire Smith of Prairie.
Excellent. Well, our next honoree for the first team All-Region, a second time that this player has led Clark County in scoring. It's the sharpshooting sophomore from Union, Brooklyn Haywood, obviously someone who just can fill it up on any given night. Only a sophomore, already past 1,000 career points. You just never know how many she's going to put up on any given day. And more often than not, she was scoring in the high 20s.
Yeah, the numbers jump off the page, and she really kind of caught fire toward the end of the regular season, and that translated into the postseason. She had games back-to-back of 42 and 43 points as part of their run in the bi-district tournament, and those are the kind of numbers you just don't see often, and not only in this area but in the entire state. And to be doing that as just a sophomore is really impressive. And Union did come up a little bit short of state this year, but players like Brooklyn Haywood and Ava Smith are some of the most talented guards and shooters, not only in the area but in the state.
All right. We have 4 more spots to reveal, and there's going to be something in common with these last 4 spots. And I think you can guess why, because no team statewide was as dominant as the Camas Papermakers were this year, winning their first state title in program history. And we're going to start with their talented backcourt, starting with Riley Sands, a shifty combo guard, 9.5 points, 3.1 assists per games, but also a great defender. This junior was really one of those key cogs that made the Papermakers go.
Yeah, Riley Sands is a senior. There were times when it felt like she was really Camus's MVP at times, which is a crazy thing to say on a team with several other players we might be about to reveal here. But somebody who's not only a shooter but can create her own offense. I remember they kind of, their offense was a little stuck in the mud in their opening round game against Gonzaga Prep. She really put the team on her back in the first half and kind of, helped them get their feet under them a little bit. And then on the defensive side, she often drew the opponent's top perimeter player. I remember in the state semis, really was part of the reason that they shut down Sumner's Lainey Julian, and often got that assignment, but really a great two-way player. And as of now, still uncommitted as far as we know, but many colleges would be lucky to have her.
This next player also in the backcourt, this one a junior, that would be none other than Kira Thompson, one of the best ball distributors in the state. Probably a point guard that if they needed her to score more, she definitely could. But her forte is really distributing the ball, and that she did, averaging 6.4 assists per game, 4A state all-tournament pick, and just really the maestro in the backcourt for when Camus, that passing game gets going. It is beautiful to behold.
Sure. Yeah. We talk a lot about her passing ability and just kind of her command of the offense as the floor general. Another thing that just kind of stood out to me this year, it seemed like, she's a good shooter too. And it seems like just time and again rises to the occasion to hit key 3-pointers, whether it's the end of a quarter or just as the shot clock is running down in key moments. And obviously I don't have, exact stats on that, but it just seems like when you watch her, she comes up with big shots in big moments.
All right. The next member of the first team All-Region, it was someone who was really kind of not afraid to do the dirty work and could take on any role and come up with a big game, a big shot, a big defensive stand when Camus needed, and that's Reagan Jameson. The Penn commit, she just was so versatile, could just do everything he can. I think, like she had in the past, really stepped her game up under the brightest lights at the state tournament.
Yeah, her junior year was mostly lost due to injury. She did return toward the end at state, but never really kind of got back to 100%. But this year, I think you saw her kind of return to the Reagan Jameson we all know, and that's as a scorer, as a rebounder, as a shot blocker, somebody who kind of gets in passing lanes and can force steals. And it seemed like beginning with her sophomore year, their first trip the Tacoma Dome, really elevated her play there, and we saw that again this year. She led them with 17 points in that state championship win against Gonzaga Prep, and really a great send off for a great player and a senior who was a major part of their program for several years.
And that brings us to the revelation of our all-region girls basketball player of the year. And for the second year in a row, it is Addison Harris of Camas. Boy, you talk to coaches around the area about Addison Harris, and they mention her versatility. They mention her work rate. They mention her selflessness, how she is willing to play any role. Probably going to be a wing when she goes to Montana State next year, but because of her 6'2" size, would often have to play in the front court as a post. But she was also Camas's best three-point shooter percentage-wise.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So that just goes to show the versatility, and more than that, the spirit that Addison Harris, I think she kind of embodied everything that made that Papermakers team special, from the bond with her teammates to the selflessness to the I'll raise my hand and I'll do anything that this team needs for me so that we can get a win. Addison Harris, again, well-deserving, two-time All-Region Player of the Year.
Yeah, well said. And I think, she's somebody who obviously is often the kind of focal point of a team's game plan to stop them. And I think, a player like that could obviously put up more points if they wanted to in certain situations. But I think, she played her role to perfection within this system, but obviously their most impactful player. She's now a two-time All-Region Player of the Year. Really can do it all offensively, and for somebody with that frame to be able to move like she does and shoot that way, I mean that's a rare thing to see, and going to be really exciting to see what she does at Montana State.
All right, well, that is our All-Region girls basketball team. Now we move on to the boys, and just like the girls, some incredibly deserving players among this group. We will start with the second team, and talk about a deserving team that really came on at the end. That would be Skyview and Malachi Weimer. You got to see him, and you got to see Skyview kind of take that step toward getting their first state trophy, I believe, since 2018?
Yep.
And Malachi Weimer, what did he mean to the Storm?
Well, we've used the word versatility a lot, but I think that is exactly kind of what he was. A lot of versatility and upside during the Storm's run to that sixth place finish. Only a sophomore, but really, a guy who can score, rebound. He averaged 12 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 assists per game. I think really another player who, after a freshman year, he came into high school as a pretty highly touted player, and was asked to play the 5 a lot for them as a freshman while they didn't really have any other healthy big men. Kind of slid over to his more natural forward position this year, and really, I think took a big leap in year 2 in high school. And just a sophomore, he's going to be a force for a couple years to come now. All
right, the next member of our All-Region team, his brother was an All-Region player, but also for Battleground, Trey Spencer is now an All-Region player. Trey Spencer, he saw his older brother kind of go the charter school route and try to improve his college prospects there, but you still have the sharpshooter at Battleground, Trey Spencer, who was able to put up some big games this year.
Yeah, I don't think he gets maybe enough credit for stepping into that number 1 scoring option and just kind of keeping things moving for the Tigers. But he averaged 22 points, which I think ranked second in the area, and that was on 50% shooting. So pretty efficient player. Really, and they still made it to the bi-district tournament. It was a really up and down 4A Greater St. Helens League this year, but they rose to the occasion at the end, and Trey Spencer was really their leader. And to the best of my knowledge, one of the rare players who actually does not play for a club team in the offseason, just a high school player. But, when it turns to high school season, he's locked in, and he's one of the best scorers in our area. All
right. Also one of the best scorers in the area as far as being a pure shooter is the next member of our All-Region team, and that is Columbia River's Aaron Hoey. Aaron Hoey was really part of a dynamic backcourt that saw the Rapids reach the Yakima Sundome for the first time since 2019. And really, I thought was part of one of the more entertaining teams to watch in the area this year. Columbia River, they like to run the court, but also with that backcourt of Aaron Hoey and Ari Richardson would, they could beat you from long distance as well.
Sure. Yeah. He averaged 15 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists per game. And I thought he and Ari Richardson were good complements for each other. And both players, again, Aaron Hoey, a great kind of clutch time scorer as well. And somebody who can make difficult shots and make it look easy. And, we've talked about that junior class in particular and them rising through the ranks. And this year it really translated to success for them to be able to reach the Yakima Sundome, and it's going to be a great senior year for him as well.
All right. The next player I thought was one of the best complementary players that I saw and how he worked his way into the role with his team, and that is Camas guard Jace Van Voorhees. Great number 2 options in scoring for the Papermakers. Yep. And when he was on, I think you saw that manifest in ways like their regional state tournament win in Yakima, where they made 19 3-pointers. Jace Van Voorhees was a key part in that. When he's on, the Papermakers are really dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, he's a shooter. He can slash and get to the hoop, and I think he plays a little bit bigger than his size too. He's kind of got some shades of former teammate Theo McMillan, and kind of being a really good rebounding guard and somebody who gets steals and can distribute with assists. I think he already ranks in the top 3 in program history in both rebounds and assists, which is pretty impressive for a junior. And I think a really one of the reasons that they have been so good these past few years. They've now shared the league title in 3 straight seasons, made it back to the Tacoma Dome for the 2nd straight year, and Jace Van Voorhees is a big part of that.
All right. Our next member of the All-Region team, Colchester of Ridgefield. Ridgefield was one of those teams that, was probably more greater than the sum of its parts as a team, but Colchester was really the glue that had the Spudders going.
Yeah, he was a 15-point per game scorer. He hit, I believe, in the ballpark of 63 pointers this season as well. And somebody to me that has always been a really kind of even keel player who, it never seems to get rattled in the big moments of a game. And, they've been in some pretty crazy games these past 2 seasons. And this year, I remember that comeback against Columbia River in league that he really was key in. And, just a player that I think has really grown a lot in these past 2 seasons. He was part of Ridgefield's run to the state tournament last year, their first appearance since 2012. And it's going to be a tough person to replace for them, but he's been a really big part of their team now for 2 years.
All right. The last member of the All-Region boys basketball 2nd team will reveal Cody Holcomb of Union. And Union, they had what a roller coaster year for the Titans. Yeah. I mean, kind of had some struggles early on, but then some big wins at the end to really make it interesting and put them right on the precipice of possibly getting into the postseason. And Cody Holcomb was someone who really grew into his role this year. Yeah,
he's a junior. He was kind of the bridge in a way between the Titans' previous era. He was the lone returning starter from the team that reached state in Blake Conley's last year. He comes in this year under first-year coach Gerald Howe, really asked to be a leader, and I think he stands about 6'8". I think probably more naturally a wing, but sometimes has to play in the post as well. A really athletic player who's still kind of growing into his body, but somebody who's already really a good player for Union. I think he averaged 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists per game, and then he can shoot as well. He came up clutch in their kind of 2 wins late in the season to push them into the 3rd place tiebreaker, hit some big threes down the stretch against Skyview on the team's senior night to kind of keep their season alive. And he'll return next year with a little bit more familiarity in this system, and hopefully the Union can take another step forward.
All right. That brings us to the first team All-Region boys basketball team. And we'll start with a guy who was on this team last year and continues to be one of the more dynamic scorers and backcourt players in the area, none other than Beckett Curry of Camas. Beckett, he's really sort of the engine that has powered the Papermakers to the Tacoma Dome the last 2 years. Don't leave him open. He might get hot and run away with the game for you. But also, I thought did a really good job at the end of the year of kind of distributing the ball and making some passes that really made the Papermakers the most dangerous version of themselves.
Yeah, he was the 4A GSHL Player of the Year in a really stacked league, and he's already kind of found himself at the top of the program in history in terms of most points scored, most three-pointers, field goals. Already has a share of the most wins. I think he's been part of 53 wins in his career in just 3 seasons. Another player, we've said this already, but just somebody who is always going to be the focal point of a defense, draws a lot of box and ones, a lot of double teams, and has to figure out ways to navigate that. But just a really dynamic scorer, and I think one of the hardest workers you'll ever see. He's been awesome for Camas for 3 years now, and again, just like Jace Van Voorhees, they've been part of really one of the most successful now 3-year runs in Camas history, and it's really been a credit to those guys that they've been able to do it year in and year out. Well,
the future is bright for this player, and the future is bright for Seton Catholic in a lot of ways because of this player, and that would be none other than the freshman Caden Wilson.
Yep.
Talk about someone who can kind of do everything, 6'4", can get up above the rim, just had some highlight reel dunks, but also could hit from deep. Just a really tough matchup, and only a freshman plays with kind of a fire that you see, usually for an upperclassman. But Caden Wilson, first team all tournament at the 1A state tournament, where Seton Catholic was able to get 6th place and stay around till the last day after taking eventual champion and number 1 ranked Zilla down to the buzzer. Seeing Caden play there in Yakima, I really came to appreciate just how good of a player he is and how great of a player he could be.
Yeah, an instant impact guy who's to do what he's doing as a freshman. I mean, it's kind of scary to think what for other teams what it'll look like in a few years, but averaged a double-double, 17 points and 12 rebounds, and obviously earned Trico League Player of the Year honors, and plays with a good, supporting cast, a lot of several guys who have been around now for a couple of years, and they're going to be a really experienced team next year, and he really seemed to rise to the occasion, and particularly in the postseason as they got even deeper into it.
All right, our next member of the first team all region, a really potent scoring threat in the Plainsman backcourt, and that is Des Daniel. He had some monster games, really was, for a Plainsman team that had a lot of athleticism in the front court. He gave them that kind of backcourt dynamic nature that made Evergreen really dangerous.
Yeah, and just a sophomore, he earned 3A GSHL Co-Player of the Year honors and led them to the 3A by district playoffs. Evergreen was contending for that league all year, and Des Daniel was a big part of that. He scored 19 points a game, and he was a 40% three-point shooter in league. He actually shot over 50% from three, a really efficient shooter. And, we saw him get a knee injury during league play, and I think we really saw just how different they were without him. And he's already the most impactful player on their team as a sophomore. He came in as a freshman, made an instant impact for them. Just a huge part of the Plainsman's success this year.
The one team that Evergreen narrowly lost out to in the 3A GSHL title chase, that would be Kelso. And Kelso was the league champion in a lot of ways because of this next player, Hayden Yore. Another great scoring guard, someone that can, really take over a game when he needed to, and led the Highlanders to that league title.
Yeah, and he shared Player of the Year honors in the 3A GSHL with Des Daniel. They had pretty similar numbers, also 19 point per game scorer with 5 rebounds. As a senior, he had to take on a bigger load because an all-region player actually last year, Peyton Stewart, got injured for the season, and Hayden Yore took on an even bigger role and stepped in well. They won the league title. They made it to the opening round of state again. It seems like that Kelso program can just, fill in and, graduate a big senior class, and then you have a player like Hayden Yore ready to step in and just carry that torch for a really proud program. And it was a great senior year for him.
Our next player that we're going to reveal, he left some program history and, at a place where there's about as much history as you're going to find in Southwest Washington. It's none other than Braden Olson at Mart Morris. What a way for Coach Bill Backamus to end his 35 years at helming the Monarchs, to see a player like Braden Olson put together the season he did, where he ends as the all-time leading scorer in Mart Morris history.
Yeah, he was the leading scorer at Mart Morris. He set a program record single game scoring, then broke it in the same year. He scored 47 points against Hawkinson. He was the leading scorer in Southwest Washington, averaging about 26 points a game. And to break that all-time scoring record a year after teammate Kobe Parlin does it, it's pretty impressive. I mean, he's just a bucket, and he's been a big part of what they've done, and just a really talented scorer and a special player in a program that, like you said, has as much history as about anybody in our area.
Yeah, I think that record is going to stand for a long time. And that brings us to our final player that we're going to highlight. That would be our boys all-region player of the year, none other than Damari Collins. This was a tough choice because we were kind of waiting to see, which team would kind of stamp its season in the playoffs with saying that this player really rose to the occasion and made a difference. And I think you can't argue that Damari wasn't the best version of himself in the playoffs, and really an amazing way for him to cap his career there with all the scoring that he's done and kind of all the defense, but also showing that he can show up in a big moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at this award, I think a lot of what can be earned is what happens in the postseason. And I really felt like Damari Collins took it to another level, and it was the kind of thing where he's the type of player who can swing games and really carry a team in moments where maybe the lights are a little bit bright, but he shines in those moments. And he got that big steal in that opening round win against Woodinville. He had a great week at the Tacoma Dome, really carried them in that opening or round of 12 game against Federal Way that extended their week there, and then ends up scoring 25 points in the opening half against Tahomas, excuse me. Ends up kind of drawing in the defense and passing out to a teammate, Ryan Hansen, for the winning shot there. And I would say the kind of the unofficial leader in wow plays, somebody who can hit 3-pointers from Dame Lillard range, a dunker who will go at just about anybody, will sky high for blocks, just really a highlight reel type player. And then in his last game, he ends up setting Skyview's all-time scoring record, 1,256 points, passing Alex Schumacher, a peer and friend of his. Really successful career for Damari Collins, and somebody who had really wanted to play at the Tacoma Dome for several years. Skyview didn't quite have the team success, but it all came together this year, and Damari Collins was really the driver of that bus for them down the stretch.
Did you see a different Damari at the Tacoma Dome? I think you had seen him sort of off and on throughout the year, but how much did he step it up to that next level in Tacoma?
Yeah, without question. I think he took it to another level. I mean, those first 3 games in particular, I mean, just the kind of runs that, it's Matt Grueller, their head coach, says, big players make big plays in those moments, and that's exactly what he did. And with when you see a player who's kind of, drawing the defense like he is and still scoring in those ways, that's the kind of thing that really draws a lot of attention. He got a lot of looks from colleges just from that week. Grueller said that his phone's been blowing up since, with local colleges trying to figure out what he's doing next year. And yeah, just the type of performance that really kind of, I think, it really kind of finishes your legacy and kind of puts you in that place in program history. And Damari Collins just had a really special postseason and special week in Tacoma.
All right. Well, that's a great way to cap this all-region boys and girls basketball team episode, but also a great way to cap the winter season, one that saw state championships, individual performances that were out of this world, and really has us appreciating the talent and the drive and the dedication of all the athletes who took the court or the fields or the mats this year. So we're into spring. That should hold a lot of nice storylines, but a great way to put a cap on the winter season here with our all-region boys and girls basketball teams. Like I said, thank you to First Pacific Financial for supporting this, and we'll have a few new ideas during the spring season for the show that we'll experiment with, but thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.